to Exposing Workplace Bullying, where we pull back the curtain and have real conversations about workplace abuse. This is episode 5. Documentation is not a dirty word. I'm your host, Dr. Jan Kircher, founder of Stop Bully Culture. Let's be honest. The second someone says document it, most people groan. You're already drowning at work. You're being bullied. You're trying to hold on to some semblance of your personal life. And now they want you to keep a diary of all the crap you're going through? That sounds exhausting, isn't it? I'm going to level with you. I was dreading this episode too. Documentation? How am I supposed to make that sound interesting? It feels boring as all get out. But I am going to give it the old college try. So thank you for tuning in, because the reality is documentation is important if you're being bullied. Back when I started being bullied 20-some years ago, we didn't know much. It was, I guess you would say, a new social problem, and there wasn't a lot out there. But even back then, I did the same thing many of you are doing right now. I went to Google, or whatever the search engine we used back then, I don't really remember, and I tried to figure it out on my own. And what did I find? Document it, report it. That was all there was, and frankly, it wasn't really good advice. When I followed that advice, it did not stop the bullying. It made it worse. It hurt me. I got bullied more. What bothers me the most today is we still have experts handing out that same old line, document and report. But they're not telling you how to document in a way that actually protects you. They're not telling you what to do with your documentation once you have it. And worst of all, they're not warning you that reporting is risky and almost always makes the bullying worse. When I documented and reported it and the bullying got worse, I was not the exception. I was the rule. So what do you do then? When you are being bullied, documentation is necessary. It's a must. It is one of the most important things you can do. But its sole purpose is not just about reporting or filing a case. It's not just checking a box or handing HR a stack of notes or some digital files. Done the right way, it's your strategy. It's how you fight back. It's your silent witness and your secret weapon. Documenting when you're being bullied is hard, period. Writing down abuse, gaslighting, and humiliation means reliving it, and no one wants to do that twice. Some jobs make it easier to keep records, while others make it almost impossible. That's why it's important to have a system. And believe me, I know how hard this is. You'd think as a social worker, documentation would have been second nature to me. But no, I didn't have a system. My records were scattered everywhere. Digital files here. Emails in Outlook, scribbles in my calendar, even Post-it notes stuck places. At one point, I literally had a Rubbermaid container full of random papers and scraps of evidence that I carried around for years and moved from place to place. That was my documentation system. Not exactly airtight, right? Eventually, I threw it all away. The problem wasn't that I didn't keep things. it's that nothing was consistent. No dates and times lined up. No clear notes about specifics, what happened and when, who was there. It was just piles of stuff scattered everywhere. And documentation like that, that's scattered around, doesn't help you. It buries you. I had a boss once, I think I've mentioned him before, who was always changing the rules. One time, he cornered me outside of my office and demanded detailed notes on every single student I'd met with about their internships. He had mentioned it in a meeting before, but because he changed his mind so often, I always followed up with an email. In his reply, he told me I didn't need to keep those notes, so of course I didn't. But later, when he demanded them again, I tried to pull up that email and I couldn't find it. And because I couldn't prove what he told me, I had to scramble and do the work anyway. That's the danger of not having a system. Without one, it doesn't matter what you remember or even what was said. If you can't pull it up and show it, you lose. Here's the truth. Just keeping things isn't enough. Documentation only protects you when you can find it, when it's consistent and detailed. That means having a system. One central place where you record everything the same way every time and where you can actually find it when you need it. And your system doesn't have to be fancy or expensive. Use what you have and what you're comfortable with. Maybe it's a Google Doc or a Google Sheet, an Excel file, Word, or even notebook and paper. It doesn't matter which tool you choose. What matters is that you pick one, record the bullying, and stick with it. And make sure it's yours. Your tool, not something that your workplace has. And please don't use a Rubbermaid container. If you use something like Excel or Google Sheets, it can help see patterns later. But honestly, the best tool is the one that feels the easiest for you to use and that you're going to stick with. Now that you know where you're going to record the bullying, and from here on out, I'm going to call that your master log. The next step is knowing what to put in it. The goal is simple. Record every incident of bullying, big and small. An incident is any time bullying starts or occurs, and that is what goes into your master log, those details. Here's the rule. Every entry should include these things: date, time, location, who was involved, any witnesses, the type of bullying, and the details of what happened. Keep it objective and factual. Write down verbatim words whenever you can. And remember, most incidents involve more than one type of bullying, so capture and note each one. You don't need to write a novel, just enough so that 6 months from now, you'll remember exactly what happened. The key is to include enough detail to make sense of it later, but not so much that you're writing forever. Write down the big things, but don't miss the small ones. The snide comment in the hallway, the joke in the meeting, the email that undermined you, or the times they exclude you or fail to greet you. Those things add up. And write it down one incident after the other in a timeline fashion. Nothing is too small to record. And if you're unsure whether something counts as bullying, document it anyway. Better to have it and not need it than wish you had written it down later. The reality is you're not going to catch everything. You may not be around when they're gossiping about you, and that's okay. What matters is that you get down as much as you possibly can. Let me take you back to the time my bully came around the table. I'll tell you how I should have documented that. February 15th, 2012, 11:05 a.m. Social Work Department faculty meeting, conference room 125. Bob, the chair, opened the meeting and began agenda item 1, chair elections. During the discussion, Laura was rolling her eyes and raised her voice saying, "This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about." Then repeatedly yelled the chair's name, "Bob! Bob! I can't believe this! Bob, can you?" After about 5 minutes of this, she stood up, knocked her chair back, and charged around the table toward me. Then just as suddenly, she turned, sat back down, and said nothing. I looked up and saw all my colleagues looking down. The meeting continued as usual, with Bob moving to the next agenda item, fall schedule. I made note of the time and looked at the clock, and it was 12:05 p.m. Bob went through the rest of the agenda items, and no one said another word. The meeting adjourned at 12:35 p.m. Categorization of bullying behaviors. The behavior in this incident included verbal, murmuring, yelling, and physical intimidation, charging, and chair knocked over. Nonverbal, eye rolling. The people involved, Bob, the chair, and Laura, faculty. I would have listed each of the witnesses by name and rank. This is essentially what I should have documented, just exactly what happened from my viewpoint. You might be wondering why I didn't include any of my own personal reactions, like the fact that I was scared and shocked. And that's a valid question. The reason I leave it out is because if I ever needed to use this for reporting or to take it to HR, I don't want to give them any ammunition to use against me. If I wrote that I was scared or that it was impacting my work, they could twist that and use it to say I wasn't fit for my job because they already think I'm the troublemaker. Even use it as a justification to fire me. If you want to talk about the impact, use a separate journal for that. Your feelings and the toll this takes on you are important, but that belongs in a private place, not in your master log. That's for your protection. When it comes to documenting, you're going to have a combination of longer and shorter incidents. Some will involve a lot of details, while others may seem small, and you might think about not recording those. But it matters. Those smaller moments add up and are still important to capture. They are also helping you to tell your story. So, how does that look in practice? Here's another quick example of a shorter incident. 2/16/2012, 2:25 p.m., hallway, shared space. I was walking to my class and saw Shauna, social work faculty. She saw me, glared at me, and turned around and laughed. Categorization of bullying, behavior types. Nonverbal bullying, glared and turned around. Verbal, laughed. Incident involved Shauna, faculty. Now, why show you both of these examples, you might say? The long meeting blow up in this quick hallway slight? Because it's important to document both the major and minor incidents. On their own, a single remark or a glare might not look like much, but when you put them together over time, they show a clear pattern of behavior, And that pattern is what makes your documentation powerful and stronger. So you've got your master log where you're recording every incident, big and small. That's the foundation. But documenting isn't just about writing things down. Start thinking like a detective. Ask yourself, is there evidence? Did an email get sent? Could you take a screenshot? Were there meeting notes or witnesses? Gather what you can. And yes, I'll admit it, I am a bit of a crime junkie myself, so maybe that's why I like this approach. But it really does work. And here's a tip. Whenever you collect something, jot a quick note in your master log about where that evidence is stored so that you don't have to dig for it later. And believe me, that matters. If I could have found the email where my boss told me I didn't need to keep detailed notes on every student, it would have saved me a lot of scrambling. And here's the thing. Here's where most people just stop. They document a bit, write it down, maybe save a few emails, and that's it. That's it. Sometimes they'll use it for reporting, but most of the time, it just sits there, like mine did, in that Rubbermaid container. You don't use it. You don't make HR look at it. You just write it down. And then what? If you're going to document, you want to get the most out of it. That means using it, not just keeping it and recording it. It means using it so you can fight back. But here's the part I want you to hear. Reporting isn't the only use for documentation. Your master log is your silent witness, and it can be your kryptonite when it comes to dealing with a bully. Because when you go back and look at it, you'll start to see patterns and trends. Maybe it's always on Mondays, or always in team meetings, or always when a certain person is in the room. That's where your documentation shifts from record keeping into strategy. You'll see the locations where it happens most, the types of bullying that shows up again and again, who's doing it, who's joining in, and how often. And you only find these things by looking back at your documentation. Again, if you're using a spreadsheet like Excel or Google Sheets, you can run the numbers. Maybe it's faculty meetings like where it happened to me. Maybe it's one colleague in particular. Suddenly, you can see what's happening clearly, and that clarity gives you the foundation to build a solid response to bullying. And that's where we're headed next week in episode 6, strategizing when the system is failing you. And before we wrap up, I want to make this easier for you. Documenting can feel overwhelming, and setting up a master log from scratch isn't always simple. That's why I created a ready-to-use template, available in both Excel and Google Sheets. It's designed to help you capture the details, keep them organized, and even spot patterns over time. You can grab it at shop.stopbullyculture.com, and if you use the code TRACKER25, you'll get 25% off. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. And if this episode hits home, check out stopbullyculture.com. That's where I share tools, resources, and real talk to help you deal with workplace abuse. Until next
They
time.
gaslight and plot, play their games. Witness the smile, you're part of the shame. Your boss stays silent, closing the door. How many voices will they ignore? The bully lies, the brave get burned. The office watches, no lessons learned. Your boss hides, truth gets colder. It's time to stop the bully culture.